Alright everyone, we start off today with more propaganda and chicanery here. The legacy media attempting to preemptively label 15-minute cities a conspiracy theory, much like they've labeled a conspiracy theory that CRT is being taught in schools. Of course, it is. It professes a Marxist origin. It's deeply disturbing. Most people are against it. They're doing the same cover stories now for this because it is an actual proposal that's being made. Now, it's only being proposed by the cringe fringe, so basically the WEF has convinced climate hawks that without radical urban redesign in the Western world, we're all going to die. The world will turn into Tatooine, which is not actually the case. It basically, the rich globalists want to introduce artificial scarcity so that their own holdings can be increased at the expense of 99% of the population. So everyone else has to make do with less. Don't worry, we'll take care of the filet mignon for you, and it'll be a cash crop pretty quick because you'll be eating, rations. You'll be eating bugs and, corn syrup, I guess. The thing is that the 15-minute city thing is real. It is a real proposal. Although it's not being seriously suggested by any legitimate policymakers beyond the far left, or again, some of the globaloids out there, it is a proposal. Nonetheless, it's being labeled a conspiracy theory that it's being considered. Well, we've heard this before, and every time the conspiracy theorists turn out to be correct in the trajectory of things. When people warned back in the 2000s, hey, the government's spying on everything you do. Oh no, you sound like a tinfoil hat crazy. Then the NSA revelations come out. Hey, the government is unduly fucking around with political discourse and illegally censoring people. Oh, you tinfoil hat crazy, you're just a maggot or something. Then you have the Twitter files batch release and so forth. Link in the description, archived of course, this is the legacy media's cover story. But their covering is bullshit. The proposal is being made now. The fundamental concept is that if you do new urban planning, so you eliminate like the concept of burbs and stuff like that and sprawl. I would agree with getting rid of some of that urban sprawl, by the way. I'm amenable to the concept. And you put everyone in higher density homes and compact things more, and you have more like cycle paths and shit. So basically you transform the US into urban parts of Western Europe, actually. That you can stop climate change. Now, that's not actually the case. I've explained already. If you believe that man-made climate change is a threat and is real, you have to go to a negative emissions stage. You have to eliminate most of the world's population, and you have to deindustrialize everything. Because, of course, in the mid-1800s is when they identify that warming as having begun. The world population was a lot lower, there was a lot more fallow land in the world, and there weren't many industries going on at the time that weren't in a handful of urban centers, specifically in Western Europe and parts of North America. That was it. Everything else, people are living in the medieval stage as far as technology goes. There's no rail, there's no coal extraction, it does not exist. So that's bullshit. I mean, the premise behind it's bullshit. But the actual plan, if you look into it, is startlingly similar to something from yesteryear. It's actually not a new idea at all. It's been done before, semi-successfully. I'm talking about the commie block. The commie block is literally what they're proposing. The only difference is that they're saying, okay, but this time we'll retool it a little bit. People don't want to live in two-room slab apartments. We'll make medium-density housing. So you'll have 4 rooms instead of 2. And maybe if you're on the ground level, you'll have a little yard. Otherwise, you have a porch, and it's twice as big as that of a Stalinka. Let's go through the history of the commie block, shall we? The commie block was the notion of a radical urban redesign to equalize people. By the way, if you were at the bottom rung of Soviet society, you actually approved of this. Because instead of living in a dirt-floored shack with a tin roof, or in many cases, not having a home, you're coming back from the great patriotic struggle against the Luftwaffe, you're a decorated combat veteran, but you don't have a home to go to because unfortunately it was burned to the ground. Maybe the Red Army torched it. Maybe the White Army torched it. Maybe the Nazis torched it. Maybe you have the wrong ethnicity and Stalin just wants you to move, so bye-bye, your farm has been nationalized as part of the dekulakization policy. Well, you've got no place to go. The Stalinkas that they built for a few years early on were not that bad, actually. Most Soviets didn't live at that level of luxury. Yes, you had shitty material, it was high density, the apartments weren't large. What came later was a lot worse. They realized, well, There are ways to make this more efficient now, isn't there? The early Stalinkas were a little bit less efficient, but they were larger. They were slightly better built. That being said, the commie block as a functional whole goes beyond the Stalinka, the very hyper-regulated style of apartment, and listening devices everywhere and shit like that, people stapling rugs to the wall for extra insulation, because insulation's kind of important when you're in Russia. The commie block, as a unit though, was an area in which you had apartments. You would have a park. Each commie block segment would have its own park. This is why it all looks the same, because they had to be built the same to have that equity that we hear so much about now. Had its own medical center. Yeah, the medical quality was crappy, but it was there. For topical care, you were able to get a basic dentistry, get your immunizations, and so forth. Lots and lots of them, too. It had its own school. Some were going to be better than others, but there was an attempt at equalizing them overall, except insofar as the underclass or the rich. Of course, you always have to have an underclass, and if you can't have one economically, you have to concoct one in the form of dissidents or a racial others or something like that. It's a little bit of a power play. And then, of course, government officials who had cars and stuff, they didn't need that urban renewal. They had their mansions out in the hinterlands that the proles weren't allowed to go to generally, so they could lord over people like feudal lords. Well, that's basically what's being proposed here. Compact the cities, draw them inwards, no more suburban lots, you don't need a lawn. We're going to take all that land and give it to Bill Gates, and he'll grow you more corn. Or he'll raise you more crickets for your cricket burger or something. This has been done before. This is the commie block system. But they've sanitized it. Now they're calling it 15-minute cities. And instead of telling you, well, this is so that people will be more equal. No, Americans don't want that. Europeans don't really want that either. Base level subsidies? Yeah, Europeans are in favor of those. I don't think that the average person living in a nice apartment somewhere in the middle of Amsterdam wants to downsize and live like they're in Balmermeer. That's just the long and short of it. So they've rebranded it. Now it's not because we're trying to make people equal. We just have to do this to save the world, which is somehow even worse. It's even more disingenuous and top-heavy and bullshit because it wouldn't actually save anything. Again, with a little bit of basic logic, if you analyze climate change and you analyze it as a problem and as man-made, there is no solution. It will not be solved. It is a hopeless situation unless you can sterilize 99% of the world population. Good luck doing that without people rising up, calling you a mad scientist and tossing you in the ocean or exiling you to a small prison island colony somewhere. But they're not going to tell people openly that it's not a problem, and that if it were, you'd see Klaus Schwab picking up trash, and George Soros and Obama would be planting trees instead of buying, 5 foot above sea level Martha's Vineyard homes. They want to sell this to you by saying, look, it can work elsewhere. Yes, in the Soviet Union, yes, walkable cities were a thing. But that's because artificial scarcity made it impossible for the average Soviet to get a car. When they did, it was a Yugo. It blew up or caught fire randomly. A car made partially of cardboard paneling, and literally, and things like that. They want you to live like that. Now they'll tell you, well, no, we're not trying to be like that. We're trying to be like Western Europe or something. Look, they've got walkable cities. Yes, the average Western European does own a car. A lot of them have land. There are some landly parts of Europe. Come here to the Netherlands sometime. Yes, you'll see a lot of trams and buses and bike paths and stuff like that. What is the Netherlands that most of the U.S. is not? Densely populated and super flat. It's real easy to do urban redevelopment under such conditions, especially if you're confiscating a bunch of farms, claiming that you want to leave the land fallow to turn into nature preserves even though you clearly intend to develop them and make more housing, because you have a massive housing shortage and it's starting to cost people out of the marketplace, ruining parts of your economy, threatening a housing collapse in the Netherlands. Oh, I wonder why they want those extra, however many tens of thousands of acres. You can put a lot of people into that area if you make it medium density, with the little bike paths and stuff. Yeah, of course, this urban renewal that they're calling it is a real suggestion. It's being newspeak to death. It's not 15-minute cities, it's commie blocks. Do you think you're going to get the kind of quality as you get with the solidly middle class like here in the Netherlands? And even there, a lot of it's slab. Again, the houses that I see going up that look really nice on the outside, are mainly slab development. In this climate, 50 years from now, a lot of them will be crumbling apart. They're not built the same way as older style housing. It's a temporary fix for a temporary problem, and they know it. That's why they're not putting so much cost into it, by the way, when they subsidize these projects. A lot of it is still very commie block. You can go to Balmermere again, and it looks basically like the Soviet Union at times. Now, there's a renewal going on there that counters this, actually. Art pieces and a lot of banks are moving in next door, and it's gentrifying that particular area to an extent, at least parts of it. Around the arena, it's not so bad. You can get a little bit rowdy sometimes, but yeah, you're safe walking there, unless it's at night, for the most part. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a real fucking proposal. It's being explicitly proposed by climate hawks. Well, if we just take your suburban land, if we take it away, all of a sudden climate change will go away. Yeah, good luck with that, asshole. That's about all. Peace out.